So yeah, recruiting strategy, that's what we're talking about. How to attract rock star crane operators and office members. So just gonna get this out of my way there. All right. So main thing I want to cover first is actually just retention. And that's a lot of people on the employee side I talk to are all about like, hey, I'm glad you're talking about retention. It's one of the biggest struggles from their perspective. And then also from our perspective, like I talked to a couple of people lately that have lost guys, and we have lost guys over the past, and we kind of put in the numbers. And we found out that we end up losing like about 20,000 in either sales revenue or just in training the next guy up minimum. So every time we found we got a new green operator, we would lose a customer or two. So the lifetime value of that customer, plus having two guys on the same job site for who knows how long till they're up on their feet, plus having that crane sitting and losing momentum as well. So one big thing that I found is actually when I'm about to lose a operator and they're saying, hey, these guys are just paying me better, I'll actually now throw an offer out to try match it, because I know in the long run it's going to kill my momentum here and I'm going to have that turnover. So it's obviously,
What would your percentage be on a match though? I mean, at what point would you match that percentage if it's like 40% over what you're paying the guy? I mean, it's
yeah. Like I know you talked about the situation that you had there, and I wouldn't match that. That was just, quite a bit over what you can pay. Like you said, you're paying guys to do trusses, right? So you can't match what that train company threw at your operator, right? So, I'm talking like 10%, 15% max, right? If it's above that, it's like, hey, listen, we're already trying to pay well. Never mind, like we can't compete with it all, kind of thing. So sometimes you do have to cut your losses, but I find money is just one of the issues, and it's important obviously, but it's not the major issue. And if you've got a good company and guys like working for you, they'll stay even though you don't pay, you know, and match whatever contract it is, right? So some guys go to that next crane company, get thrown in the deep end, hate their life, and then be like, oh man, can I come back in a month later, right? We've had that before. And it's like, hey, listen, we hired a new guy and we have a hard time trusting guys that just will get up and leave, right? So when we replace them, you're replaced. We don't really bring guys back for the most part, unless they're good guys and they go on like a year-long vacation or something. We've had that, and it's like, hey, when you come back, we'd love to have you back. So major reason why people leave, we want to learn this just so that we have it from the kind of our operators' perspective, because we're all entrepreneurs, right? So when things get tough, we got to show up tomorrow. We grind it out, no matter how miserable it is. The people that we hire aren't like that, right? They're a little bit more, well, they have a way out, right? So they can just completely get out of their misery tomorrow by just quitting, and all their problems in your business are solved by quitting, right? So that's how they have that easy out. So we have to kind of deal with that, right? So a major one that we've come across in our past is burnout. And we used to do a lot of trusses. So like we'd have the 22-ton brains and, we'd be pulling trailers, doing the trusses, 3 loads a day, burning out our guys all summer long. We made good money and the guys wanted to work. So we worked them. But year after year, that kind of wears guys down, right? And then even though they say they want to work, their, wives start complaining, their families and kind of things like that. And it's, so we had to start to spread the work around a little bit better. So we ended up, I think I was talking to Ryan a couple of weeks ago, we actually got out of the truss industry. First of all, because the economy, residential, kind of we saw it crash in 2025. Another thing is in our area, it's flooded with smaller cranes and we can't compete with their low prices. So we didn't want to race to the bottom. And then our third major option was our reason was our operators are getting burnt out. So we're like, hey, let's now pursue bigger swing cabs. And that's where the guys want to operate. And they'd rather be in the seat than, having their neck cranked over the front of their truck all day, right? So on competitive pay, we've kind of talked about that. We've lost guys in the past they've left our business as crane operators to go run B trains for another crane company because they pay more just to run a B train, right? So like I said, matching that and just kind of being aware of that. a lot of times, like I would say the old guard in the crane industry, they've made a lot of money on inflation, where the younger guys know that they're losing money on inflation. So we want to keep our, prices going up. And I would say like, if you're like, for example, we're pretty just average with pay. We're not throwing money at people. We're just average, and we kind of compensate that with just a better work environment.
Like Connecticut.
Pardon? Yeah, unless you're high taxes, they need more money in Connecticut.
Our rate union right here. So we pay our guys $61.45.
Yeah.
Plus a $38 an hour package if they're in the hall.
Yeah. So that's quite a bit more than us. So that's why I say money isn't always the answer. Because like we pay our guys around 45, and we run from like high abs to like 8-ton cranes. In Canada, it's a little bit different.
Right.
But that's kind of our average wage. And we don't have actually benefits at our company, which goes against us big time. We'll probably end up getting them. It's just something we haven't got around to doing. But that's like a huge, I would say, handicap that goes against us. So that's why I say money is great.
Employment, like employee ownership kind of programs, those kind of go into that benefit package as well.
Yeah, like what do you mean by that?
So like we're offering a package for like 5 people. So we offer packaging so we just upgraded to like we have a 120-ton DMAG, and the guy was running that last year. He did in sales about 680,000.
Yeah.
We had some breakdowns and stuff like that, but then at the end of the day, the machine produced income wise for the business around $500,000, and so that's a percentage based bonus to him that goes in. Basically, he could either take the money, would be taxed, or he could pay into being, more substantial like shareholder in the business.
Yeah.
And taking ownership, because I don't plan on being more than a 10-person operation.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a sweet gig to go to you guys, right? Like that's above and beyond what other companies go for, which is awesome.
Right.
So money matters. Money does get you better people, but all the terrible guys in the industry want to top dollar as well, right? So you can still attract some pretty low culture, low performance operators.
Yep.
So but money is important. I just want to say, like, we're not doing anything special as far as that. We're very average, and we still have very good employment things. Perfect. So, but the biggest one I'm going to really focus on tonight is lack of career growth. So I'll read you this message in the next one from a guy I got this week, just to kind of clarify that. But a lot of guys that are motivated, that are the good, high culture, high performance motivated operators, and even in your office staff that want to grow, they want to get better. They don't want to just show up to your job and then leave, do the crane operating and then leave, or just go to the office, do their thing and leave. They want to have a purpose. They want to better their career. So that's having opportunities like that is a strategy that we imply. Like we get, I'll show you guys in a little bit of our career growth in our company and why it works so well. And it's more specific to our area. So you kind of have to change it for your area, whatever works for you guys. But another one's high stress due to disorganized mind reading and expectations. So a lot of the crane industry, the way we were trained, is just basically thrown on a crane and you got an address and a time and what crane to bring. And then you show up and then the customer looks at you and says, "Hey, where's the man basket?" You're like, "I don't know. I just got an address." And then, a man basket shows up in a truck. So the boss obviously organized it, but it's very dysfunctional, right? So, and then our operators are the ones face to face with our customer. So they are the ones dealing with the disorganized kind of mind reading, and it frustrates them. So making small changes has been huge for us, and just making it easier. If there's an easier way, why not do it to make our operators and our team members' lives just a little bit easier? Another one's poor communication. So I address that there, but also just like details, or even like, say if something does go wrong, like last couple of weeks ago, I had an operator that swore at our customer. So I addressed it right away. I said, "Hey, listen, like I get there's high stress situations, but we cannot swear at customers. There's like a zero policy for that." Addressed it right away. Said, "Hey, we want the best for you, but we can't have you on this crane if you're going to be doing this, you have to be able to manage that stress. He's a younger guy, he's 25. So he's got to learn how to just manage that stress because swearing at customers is just bad for business. So they don't pay us to swear at them. So and I've worked with the same customer for 15 years. I know the guy's a little quirky, but you don't, there's no reason to swear at them. So poor communication would be not even addressing that. And then it's kind of now your operator's frustrated with you, you're frustrated with them, and it comes into a big blowout at the end of the day. And then it's bigger than it is. Somebody quits and leaves, right? So another one's poor technology, right? A lot of people are still using pen and paper. And it's pretty common, which is fine in a way, but it's 2026 and bosses are still getting mad at their operators saying, hey, where's the paper? Did you not bring it in the office? It's still in the truck. Did it fall out of the truck? Those arguments and those stressful situations don't need to happen anymore. There's apps for it. There's way better ways of doing that, right? So I'll cover that a bit. We went digital about 5 years ago, and our operators love it, and it just gives us a lot more structure than the kind of disorganized way of doing things.
So do all your guys have like an iPad or something that they take with them, or how do they,
No. So basically our dispatching app is on our phone and the computer. So like the office will always run it on the computer, and then the guys can just do it from there. So I'll show you that like a little bit later, but it's important to go that way because technology is progressing quite a bit, and
it's super huge.
The crane industry is just quite far behind just because software guys have not really given us the tools, because we're a niche industry, right? And they're confused by cranes. So they just go to plumbing, HVAC, and take care of those guys. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I just want to show like a text that I got this week, just to kind of go over some of the things that we just talked about. So it says, hey, Simon, been following you for a while. I like your content and what you stand for. So this is another point of what does your company stand for? Like I'm obviously on social media, so I'm talking about what I do in my business, what our principles and standards and how we run our business. So people see that and say, hey, I want to work for you. So the best way to, I would say, and there's no better terms, but to poach other great operators is to entice them by like, hey, I see what you guys are doing and I like it. So I have a disorganized guy over here that I'm dealing with. I'm kind of sick of it. You guys, are seeing like you got a good thing going on. Another thing is I'm 32. I work at a company. I blurted out, but I seem to attract younger guys because I have the technology, because I kind of have this kind of newer side of the crane industry. Then
leadership.
Like instead of the old guard, right? Where it's my dad is very old guard and I've had to kind of take the reins from him and be like, hey, listen, that's not working for us. So we have to do something better. We have to change. So that was a big change when I kind of took over that. So leadership.
How long were you working for your dad before you did that?
So 8 years ago, I took the reins I basically said like, hey, he was basically, screw this. This is stupid. We can't get anybody, and blaming everybody. I was like, hey, you've tried. Can you just let me try? And that was about 8 years ago. And I've been doing it 15 years. So yeah. And then it's, I'm getting the benefits now. And then in the last like 4 or 5 years, it's been progressively getting better because change happens slowly. I had to learn how to change as well, right? Because my dad is the only one that's taught me. My grandpa, taught him in the crane industry, right? So we have generational ways of doing things that obviously didn't work. So we realized, hey, nobody wants to work for us. We have high turnover. So what are we going to do different? So
I always thought you were born in a crane.
I know, right? Pretty close.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're like kind of the complete opposite. Our background was all excavation stuff, and then my father being minority, he's like was as an apprentice worked for a crane company around here, is big, and then he was their guy and put him in a tower, and then he never got out of once he got out of the tower, he went right back to a 33-ton boom truck, and he just was like, you know what? We're gonna go buy our own boom truck.
That's awesome. So, yeah, it's got to start somewhere. So you'll find in business, you will attract who you are. So I try to represent myself as a young, motivated guy. I wouldn't get along with like a lazier kind of guy. We'd just butt heads pretty quick. So I like and I attract kind of who I am kind of thing. So that's going to be a pretty common thing of where my dad would attract more of a disorganized, dysfunctional people that he doesn't like working for him. But it's like, well, you got to change if you want that, right? So I'll just continue on here real quick. So yeah, basically runs a high ab, which is important. That'll kind of come up in a bit. Your brother Mark actually got me my ticket. So we have a crane training school that we started about 8 years ago, just because we found, yeah, a lot of people are going out of the baby boomers going out, and there's not many people coming in. So we wanted to make sure that we secured kind of future employment, but that didn't solve our employment issue altogether. So I only maybe get 1 or 2 every few years out of the crane school, but it is one way that I've helped secure some of the top guys, cherry pick those guys. So anyways, that's basically, he goes on to basically say like, hey, he doesn't feel fulfilled at his company, and they're not going to get bigger IABs, and he wants to progress his career basically. So that's kind of how important it is from an employee side to get that growth path, right? And if you don't have a growth path, say you're a small business, you can kind of use that weakness and be like, hey, I'm a small business, but I'm growing. So you'll be my right-hand guy as I grow and get bigger, right? So that also will attract, a guy that'd be like, hey, I'm not just an operator here, I'm a right-hand guy, and I'm actually going to help him, which I was to my dad, right? I was the second one into the business. So just because you're small doesn't mean, it's just all hope is lost. So the biggest mind shift for me was I switched the pyramid. So if you think about business is basically a pyramid scheme. The owners at the top, management, office and operators that's kind of how traditional business is done. I flipped that pyramid. So now I'm at the bottom and I have to serve everybody and equip them with the skills that I expect, right? So when you flip that pyramid, it's a mind shift that now it's like, okay, I have to equip the operators to now train them to my standard. And that was like probably the biggest shift for me. So another thing that I realized was, as a founder, you all know this, where you have to hustle to get business for your first crane, your second crane, you're on sales calls, you're approaching customers, you're on the crane, you're invoicing, you're doing it all. So you got this hustle culture going, right? It's all in you, it's survival, and that's does you very well. And if you're a good operator, good crane, you'll get business, as all of you guys has done. But when you get to 3 to 5 cranes, you now have to that's now your handicap, that hustle culture. I got to do it. I'm just going to jump on and fix the problem. That goes against you. You actually have to flip now to be a leader, and you have to now train people to do what you can do yourself and to your standards. So the way I do it, I'll show you kind of some of the things that I do to train. But so I want to just kind of in that section here, I want you guys to ask your team members on Monday a couple questions here. So a couple practical questions is, what do my people need to perform at their best? And that's a dangerous question for an owner, because a lot of owners are quite sensitive about their business and they are threatened by their team members. So when you ask that question, sometimes you don't even want to hear the answer. And it's kind of like this knee-jerk reaction of, I don't want to ask that. But you do not want to have a business where you basically are chief and commander and everybody is your yes man, and they do not give you any feedback at all, because then you do not grow in your business. You don't get better. And they just agree with you because they know you're not going to listen any ways. So that was kind of like the old guard way of how we did things. Then we actually started to listen to our guys, and then they started actually helping us out. And some of the things that I learned in my coaching and just over the years in business is actually from my employees. So don't be threatened. There's obviously some, like that message I just read to you from that operator that wanted to work for us. He basically said like, hey, my company needs to buy bigger cranes for me to stay. And that's not realistic for some, right? It's like, that's, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So another one is like, what can I remove to reduce the stress and obstacles in your business? So what are the guys, is it like technology? Is it the pen and paper? Are they getting frustrated? Am I texting them their details at 8 o'clock at night, and then they're at a hockey game and they, playing hockey, and then they hit the shower and they get it at 11 o'clock. And then they look at their phone, they've got 9 missed calls from you being like, are you showing up to work tomorrow? Maybe like, and a thing that we changed is just texting the guys their details, or like now that we're dispatching out, alerting them on their details at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. There's obviously odd changes come in after 5, 6, 7 o'clock with last minute changes, but we try to be consistent and respectful that we're not phoning them when they're off work and just kind of letting them be with their families, right? And that goes a long way of reducing stress and just obstacles that annoy them, right? So another thing is clear communication, giving them all the details. That if we have details, why are we holding it back from them? Give them the details so that they can do the job well, and when they show up, they're doing it with the customer. And then
I think that's such a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, before we started our company, I ran cranes for 20 years before we started our company, and it seems like every crane rental company they want to give you the least amount of information, and it's so frustrating because a salesman shows up at a job and looks at it and talks to the customer, and they think that the operator is going to know what they talked to the salesman or whoever about. You get in the yard with a piece of paper and you just show up, and then they expect you to know everything, and nobody ever told you anything. And that was just the biggest failure I ever saw coming through, running cranes, was just no communication of, why not give you the guys the help?
Yeah, and I understand it from both parties. I understand it from my perspective as well. We were bad for this. So I got email over here with some information. I got text over here, and I got to combine those, write it down, text it, or send it off with a phone call. And things are getting missed, and it's just easier. I'm too busy to do it. So a lot of we're just busy. So we cut corners, right? So I get it from both sides, but I'll show you kind of a way that I kind of help guys out with that. So another big thing is system. So we want to train the guys to the best of our ability. So I'm just going to show you guys some of my training that I have. And like I said, all of this stuff is hard work. There's no easy solutions to the operator crisis, right? So you'll see how much money we've spent on this and how much work we have on this. So this is some of our training that our operators get. So this is one of the resources they get. We have our yard rules in here. This is one of our yards in Abbotsford where we park the trucks. I have it clearly labeled. We have a system there and a reason why we do that. So that's, done for them. I don't have to constantly tell them. They can just check this resource kind of thing. So snow day, another thing, it's like, hey, if there's a freak snowfall, here's a bunch of things to look over in your crane, to watch out for. We don't want to break these off, and check this before you show up, right? We've had enough cranes damaged in the snow and ice that it's worth doing these things, right? So another one is on every single one of our cranes, we have how to drive it, how to set it up, how to operate it, the different quirks that it has, taking down the crane, troubleshooting the crane aligned with pictures. So you want to do it in steps so that you can literally pass this on. I tested this out with one of our operators that was going from the 40 ton to the 80 ton, said, here you go, set up this crane without me ever teaching you how to do it. So he could do it just by reading it. And it was an experiment for me. It took him, 45 minutes or whatever, just to mess around and do it all slowly. But he did it. It's not going to work. If you miss a step, then they're going to miss a step. So that's another reason why I do it, so that I know what steps I've missed to include it. So if you're having the same crane for the next 10 years, why not just take a half an hour, dump your, information that you have and pass on your wisdom on that crane, so that when you are training guys, they can just jump on it, they can refresh it. Same with all the crane attachments, installing a jib. We got 31 steps. You miss one of those and you're sitting there on site being like, hey, the anti-tube block's not working. And then it's like, okay, well, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Or they could just, what I find guys do is if they haven't put the jib on in a while and they're kind of rusty, they'll read this while they're warming up the truck. It's in their short-term memory. They do that over the next 6 months, the odd time when they kind of know they're going to forget something. Then after that few months or even few weeks, if they're repeatedly put it on, then they don't even need to look at this stuff anymore, right? But they have all the information there for them. Same with my industry training. So I have like even some of these are just YouTube videos where it's like, hey, this guy, what was that? That's funny. Yeah.
He's a
So
badass. He's the reason
yeah.
I bought that grove.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this guy's got a YouTube channel, does tree removals, done a great explanation and views on it. So I'm not going to go out and spend a ton of time when I could just get this guy more views, basically. So they could just click on that, actually visually see how to do a tree removal. Because most guys in our company, they're coming from high abs up and they're crap their pants when they show up and need to do a tree removal. But we have all the different wisdom that we have passed down on it and give them
You
all the
guys don't do
resources.
trees? You don't do trees a lot up there?
Oh, we do a ton of trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because the West Coast, we're right in off mountains here, so we do a ton of tree removals. That's why I do like my top 10 industries. But I'm saying like for our operators, like I'll show you guys in a bit, but our operators, our growth progress in our company, they don't start off doing trees because they're on the smaller cranes, right? So you need like 120 feet of boom to take a tree down here because they're all tall. So when they get to the next level. So I got like my 10 top ones. I'm not going to do every single one. This is just too time consuming. So I got another fleet maintenance training, where's all the grease points on our trucks, right? Because I don't want you to miss one. And then if you miss them multiple times, then you're going to, that part is going to get damaged and it's no good, right? So that's one just for the operators. And then I have one for our office. Same thing. A lot of times I'll do screen recordings of how I do something. It's called Loom, where you can just record yourself. And then I can do that for how I do an invoice, how I do a quote. I have my email templates. I have all the different, like my phone transcripts of how I answer the phone. Because a lot of times what happens is you'll hire somebody into your office. You don't have a way of answering the phones. You have kind of like, hey, these are the questions that you need to answer. And then they wing it. And then you're kind of like, I don't really like you wing it. And then like, well, how do I do it? And then there's that friction, right? So office, I find, especially when you're hiring your first office, for us, it was 5 years ago and it was a miserable experience because we were trying to figure out how to train this guy when we just did it all ourselves. And we didn't have the tools or equipment to teach him, right? We had none of this. So we found about 8 years ago, 50% of our phone calls was our employees calling us every day with problems. And we had basically trained them to be reliant on us. And then 50% was, maybe 40% customers, 10% spam. But it's just kind of, so we have that dialed way down now to like 15% customer or like 15% our own employees, like 10%. It's just kind of caused an emergency. They're pretty self-reliant now because of this, right? And a lot of times I get this reaction of like, hey, we're crane operators. I'm not going to be reading this stuff, right? So, I'll do all this work and no one's going to use it. But the way I do it is I have basically levels in my business. And if you want to get to the next level, you better know each level has maybe 2 or 3 cranes in it. And then a few industries that you haven't done before, because now this crane, it's a bigger crane, does more things. So you better know those systems before you even ask to move up, to be ready. And usually it's basically based on like kind of a reward. And these guys are motivated to grow. So they're going to be looking at this. So when I show up day one and they're on, going from that 22 ton to a 40 ton, I say, okay, show me how to do it. And they should be pretty rehearsed in these that they can set up the crane. And obviously they'll ask me questions. I'm not a total jerk, but they are fluent in how to do it before they do it. Because I find, crane industry, we've all just done it verbally in the past and just, high pressure situation. We're hovering over the guy and helicopter kind of parent the guy and teaching him, and he's learning in that environment. So that obviously works. It's only one way. You got to be on the crane and learn it. But then if you have a resource that you can go back to and kind of connect the dots at the end of the job or even before the job, I find guys learn way faster. So that's a big one. Do you guys have any questions on that?
I just started doing the systems, putting things together. And I mean, just looking at all your stuff there, I mean, there's just scrolling through the quick stuff you've shown, everything you have with. I mean, there's hours and hours and hours of putting that together. So it's just something I have to like
Yeah.
spend a certain amount of time a day and just, do it. But
Yeah.
it's a big thing, but it makes a lot of sense, because trying to get what's in here onto paper that you don't have to do it 8 million times every time you hire somebody new.
Exactly right. So it's a lot of work. And if you chip away at it, do one a week, one every 2 weeks, eventually you'll get to where I am, right? I didn't do this overnight. This took me years. I did a lot of this over Christmas break and stuff like that, where we're slow. And I said, hey, we're slow. I'm jumping on the systems and doing that, right? So another big one is like the technology side, right? So this is the new app that's come out. And basically, it's taken away the excuse and actually the human error. So what happens is basically the quotes, you can fill out a quote, and then you can just all that information from your customer now will transfer over to the job schedule. So all that information like PO, what crane you need, how many hours, all that kind of stuff will now transfer to a job schedule by just kind of clicking it forward. And then from the job schedule, the operators will actually, instead of typing in a bill for that day and sending you this paper bill, all they have to do is basically click on it and they will do travel time from here to site. Then they'll change from travel time to on-site time. And then depending if they're going to another site once they're done, there's an estimate travel time back, say 45 minutes to the shop. Or an hour, or if they're just going back to the shop, then they can click on it and it collects their billable hours. So once they collect their billable hours, they can also put a picture on it. They can get a signature. They can email it to the customer right away. But once they hit job complete, what you'll get is an invoice out of your information that you already scheduled them with to get them to site. And then that'll come up with an invoice. And then this connects to QuickBooks. So now that invoice is ready for you to either edit it and make a small change here or there, or just connect it straight to QuickBooks and straight to payment kind of thing. So I'm taking the human error out of how many people touch the workflow. Because if you think about it in your business, it's the customer tells you the information. So that's two people right there. Then you pass the information on to the operator. So that's a third person. The operator fills out the exact same information plus how many hours he was on site, then sends it back to you. Then it's either you or maybe a bookkeeper or one of your office staff now taking the information from all 3 or 4 of you, then making an invoice and send it out. So there's a lot of error, I find, human error in that process. So by taking it out and having the same information passed along, we're having a lot better success. Plus, it's just a lot quicker kind of thing. So this is something that I find the younger generation, we're efficient and there's tools out there. So doing things slow and maybe the old school way just kind of frustrates us kind of thing. So
You said too, I've a couple of videos I've seen, you said, as soon as job's done, the bill should be out,
yeah.
right
Yeah.
away. Same
Yeah,
time.
cash flow is king, right? So you want, to be paid as quickly as possible. And if people take their time invoicing, people take their time paying. That's what we have found in the crane industry. So this one's an important one because when we go to do like our job postings, our area is going to be a little bit different, but the numbers that you're looking at is blue is this folding boom. So there's 561 people got their 10-ton folding ticket last year. Well, it's 2024, but it'll be similar to last year.
They're different than us.
So these are all our different tickets. This is our 22-ton folding boom. So these are the knuckle booms. So you can see most of the crane industry, people coming in got their small knuckle boom ticket in our area last year. We have a 40-ton ticket, a 40-ton in our fleet. So 160 people, 66 people got their ticket. And then we also have an 80-ton mobile. That's that ticket. This is for your just 3-year apprenticeship, your red seal right here, your mobile crane. 09 got it. And then this is self-erecting tower crane, which doesn't really apply to us. So the way we posture our company is we want to hire where the most people are. So the most people are right here in this area. Before we hired on our job applications 40-ton and under, which is 166 people, which is kind of like every year, it's probably like a fair percentage of this is already in the industry. but these are just the new people coming in, right? So the way we changed it is we want to now put our job posting and attract people where the majority of the people are, not these kind of unicorn small percentages, right? So we've had a lot of success with that. I'll show you our fleet here. So this is our fleet. We started with kind of stiff booms. We were always being stiff boom guys. There's a lot of, like I said, there's a ton of people coming in with this ticket right here, these high abs. So for us, something that we did 5 years ago, we said, okay, we're going to buy high abs so that we can now attract that 560 people plus that other 200 to get this ticket. So about 700 people, which is a good quarter of the market, already has this ticket. So if we can get them, then what'll happen is they can grow throughout our fleet. So it'll take this guy maybe 4 or 5 years to get to the 80 ton skill wise, right? We hop them on. So we can get them their 40 ton from this ticket. We can get them their 40 ton. So we play by kind of the game of the, you know, certificates and what's going on in your area. Where are all the people that you want to hire? We want to be there. So as far as like a rule on our crane company, a lot of people will be like, dude, why are you buying a high ab when you should just keep on going that way and buying bigger cranes for better profit? But we said, well, we could buy bigger cranes, but we got no one to run them. So we went smaller just so that we can get people in the door. And these people come in with their ticket already. So I know they can run that crane. I don't need to train them. They also have a truck license, so they can pull trailers, all that kind of stuff. So you're already going to work day one for me. Plus, I can ease you into these stiff booms. Stiff booms, there's obviously a lot bigger skill level to run a stiff boom than knuckle boom, right? Knuckle booms, no offense to the knuckle boom guys, but it's, you know, a glorified excavator. You know, it's not as much skill than a stiff boom, right? Once you get that boom out and that winch, you know, 100 feet of winch and you know, 120 feet of boom, it's, you know, you're swinging. So we want to ease guys in, and then that keeps them happy. We talked about career growth before, right? That guys, it's a big deal for them feeling fulfilled and they want to progress their career. So these guys are capped out at these little high abs and they're saying, hey, this is kind of stupid. After 5 years, I'm basically, you know, at the peak of my career here. I want a different challenge. So we can bring that guys up to more of a happier basically team member. So now going back to this, we never hire mobile operators right here, the guys that got their red seal, because even though they can run all of our cranes, they're qualified to do it, they're going to be so unhappy. They're used to running 200 tons, all these big cranes. We have them on an 80-ton mobile crane, and they're just kind of like, this is stupid, this is lame. So they're going to be crying all the time that they're unpaid. They're going to be whining all the time that they ran this crane and their ego's usually through the roof. And it's a step down to work for us, right? So that's why we really never hire here, because we know as far as growth in their company and career growth for them, it's a downgrade. So there's no point. So that's why I said we hire in this area and this area, because we know to grow to get your 40-ton ticket in our area, that's an upgrade for these guys, and we can give that to them. And then to get their jump up to the 80-ton mobile, that's another upgrade. So you will have years of upgrade before you get basically discontent. And we do lose guys to, hey, you know, thanks for the opportunity, but I want to run 200 tons and you guys don't have that. So do you guys have any questions on that? Because I know different areas have different certifications and union problems and stuff like that, where this isn't even really realistic.
This is actually the first time I'm ever seeing anything like this. Around here, it's like you go, so we're CCO based, not NCCO based. So
yeah,
like you go through, you get your license. I think the one you get right out of apprenticeship is up to 500 ton.
Yeah,
like straight off the boat. So you get a lot of those guys, which from my standpoint as an owner is kind of crazy, because seeing this would make life a lot easier. You know, honestly. Everybody in this state that has a crane license could run everything there.
Yeah.
Up to the only thing they can't, you know, we do have lattice restrictions and free fall restrictions, like, so
Yeah.
you gotta, you know, that kind of stuff. But
yeah, so for you, it'd be a different perspective. It's kind of like everybody has all this. but you don't want to
Right.
be still hiring 500-ton guys because you don't have one. They're going to be like
But the
constantly
difference
complaining.
between the perspective from your standpoint and mine is that guy that's running a 500 gets paid the same as the guy that runs
Yeah,
the 22-ton boom truck.
yeah.
But
But it's more,
the guys get
yeah,
the attitude like, oh, I want to run the big crane, when realistically the big cranes are usually the easiest to run because everything's figured out when you get there.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
100%. I
yeah.
agree with that
So,
100%. Yeah.
but yeah, the big dogs, when they get there, so it's fine. That's what you're working with for the most part. There is still like good humble operators that run 500 tons
Is
as
there a
well,
big
but
pay difference in your area between that, the what's it?
yeah, there would be. There's a massive, like probably like $10 from here to there.
Really?
These guys are making 30, it's almost not even worth getting into the crane industry at that point. And then like kind of 45-ish and then kind of up to like 65 up here. So
I got
Canadian
you.
guys wouldn't be paid as good as the Americans, unfortunately, but
We don't in Washington, Idaho, we don't have much of a difference between a small crane to a big crane. I mean, it's really not much money difference.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Pretty
Unless
close.
we're boom length related. So like anything
okay.
over 160 feet is another $8, I think.
Yeah. So basically money, like I said, probably doesn't matter to your guys as much. It's more culture matters to you guys. So we'll focus on culture now. So like I said, this is kind of a culture chart. On the left here, we got performance guys that are good performance, low to high. And then on the bottom, we have low to high culture. So I try to hire in this area, high culture, low performance. Like I said, like those little guys that, come in with the knuckle booms, they're usually younger, newer to the industry. I know if they're bought in to my culture and they want to grow and they're motivated, I can take that motivation and all I have to do is train this guy to get up here. And obviously sometimes like I'll train them and it's like, hey, there's no amount of training. You just don't have it. But for the most part, I'm pretty confident that I can take a guy that's a good, young, motivated guy and get him to a high performing crane operator. This is kind of your unicorn that everybody wants, right? High culture, high performance. So he's a team member. He's good with the customers. He just basically, gives you a ton of momentum in your business. That's what we're all after. So that's kind of your top guy that you want. Over on the left side here, we have low culture, high performance. So this might be a guy that your customers are like, he's an awesome operator, but man, I just wish he shut his mouth sometimes. It's just like he's just, a character. It's like I hate working with him, but he's an awesome crane operator, right? So low culture, just kind of that not bought in, not a team member in your business. So I prefer to train these guys rather than to hire these guys because when you're training or trying to change low culture, that can be a personality issue, right? And changing somebody's personality is pretty tough, right? If their wives can't change them, their mothers and their fathers can't change them, you're not going to be able to change them. So I kind of cut my losses with these guys sometimes pretty quick because I'm not, you can guide them along, but it's sometimes just hitting your head against the wall with these guys. At the bottom here,
if they show up that way, it's
Yeah.
just going to make it worse when you try to make them change who they
Yeah.
are. I've seen it work with that type of person.
Yeah. So the bottom here, low culture, low performance, you should fire those guys Monday. They're just bad for business. All they're going to do is destroy your customer base, bring morale down in your company, and they're just toxic people to have, and they're just not going to ever get high culture, high performance kind of thing. So I fire those guys up in Canada. We have 3 months to get rid of them. So a lot of times what I'll do is when they show up for an interview, I'll throw them in the deep end, kind of throw them off and say, hey, I'll just say, hey, do you want to meet me at the yard? And we'll have a chat thing to see if you're a good fit here. Then I'll say, hey, jump on the hardest crane. Like sometimes I'll do it on our 22 tons. They're 80 feet of boom, but they're the lever cranes, right? So they're kind of, all these guys that run 500 tons struggle with them. And then they have the confidence running a 500 ton. So they're trying to go fast and impress you, but they're just so wicked. It's just like, oh my goodness, I can't even send you on a job with it. But I throw them in that and knock them off because everybody that comes in for a job interview is going to be the yes man. Oh yes, I'm the hardest worker. Oh yeah, they want the job, right? So they're going to lie to you. So I like to throw them off intentionally and see their personality. So did that guy that runs the 500 tons slow down and control it smoothly, or did his ego and pride, try to go as fast as possible and just kind of then swearing a bunch and just losing his mind and just kind of like making all these excuses, right? So I can tell a lot by somebody when they're kind of pushed kind of in an uncomfortable situation. So that has saved me a lot of mistakes. Another thing that I do for, like, even if I'm hiring an office staff, I'll throw them off like on a phone interview. I'll talk to them and say like, hey, are you in shape? And some guys are, what are you talking about? And it really throws them out. They're offended. Like, I've never met this person, but I just ask them, are you in shape? And they think you're judgmental. They can go off on you, and you shouldn't be asking that. That's inappropriate, all this kind of stuff. If they're saying that, I'll just say, hey, that was a test. I just wanted to throw that out there to see how you'd react, because at the end of the day, you're going to be the one on the phones and talk to my customers. And if that's how you react, if you're quite sensitive, like, that's totally fine to be sensitive, but it's just the wrong fit at my company, because some people don't get their way and swear at you, and just kind of, there's bad days at this crane company. And I can't have you react like that. So throwing guys off, not to be a complete jerk, but I will explain it to them after. Even the guys that I threw in the deep end on the cranes, that sometimes, like, I'm understanding, like, hey, you've never run this crane, it's got quirks. So I'm not judging you actually based on how well you ran it, but I'm basing you on your character of how you reacted to that. So yeah, I'm trying to throw them off a little bit. So another thing I quickly want to cover is how to actually get these guys. So my job postings are quite different from anybody else's. Like, in the past, if I'm honest, we have copied and pasted our competitors' job postings, put them on Indeed or on like an app looking for our employees, and just changed them to what we needed. But I found, like, if they're struggling to get operators, and we're copying and pasting them, we're going to struggle. So a big thing for us is I put my mission statement on my job application. So my mission statement's different than most people's. Mine is, I have 3 economic goals for that year. So it's like, hey, I want to buy an 80 ton. I want to make $150,000 with it. I'm hiring you basically because I need more operators. And so I kind of put these different things. Another one I talked to Ryan about previous is like, my mission statement was, we're getting out of the truss industry and we need to pick up 20 customers, because the truss industry was 1/3 of our company. So we had to now pick up 20 customers that did, at least a job a week to replace all those jobs. So, and then I usually put like why we're doing this. So having that on my job application will now attract somebody that's like, hey, you know what? I do trusses and I hate it. We'll see that and be like, hey, I never have to do trusses if I work for Simon, because his mission statement is on there and I can actually help him. Like, one of our things was like, we wanted to get into tree removal because we're now trying to get into swing cabs with the bigger booms to just have better operators and to be a little bit easier on us and our burnout. So I put that in my mission statement, and they all have to be measurable goals, because at the end of the year, I want to see if I hit them. It's no point in putting vague stuff, right? People say, like, in a mission statement, I want to do safe lifts and excellence and all this stuff. I actually do goals, economic goals, 3 of them, and then measurable outcomes of how many customers I actually need. And then basically when they are reading this, they're kind of like, hey, this is what the company's doing. Can I contribute to that? And I basically say, like, are you in or are you out?
The tree industry to us is huge. So
Yeah.
I would be curious as saying, like, so you bring a couple guys in, and well, you bring, say, 1 guy into the fleet and you try him out. And at what point in time would you feel comfortable setting him out into that kind of into a situation like that? I mean, obviously what we do is we try to do 2 ride-alongs at least, with the operator to see how that goes. And then, obviously from that point forward, it's still very stressful to be in the spot where you're putting a guy around, somebody's house, and, a lot of, residential crane work is a whole nother animal in itself. So
Yeah. Tree industry is one of the last things that these guys do. So coming from a lower level, and then they'll do like maybe a tiny tree with a 22 ton, with an 80-foot boom. and that's like their first experience. We work our way up. We don't throw these guys into tree work right away because we know that's the quickest way to tip a crane. Also, a quickest way to damage an entire driveway, and we have to pay for that. So tree work, we don't just throw them in there. We'll get to do everything else. So we'll maybe have them run a smaller crane until they're familiar with it, and then we'll go with them a lot of times. So we like, now that we have the systems going, we do like a ride along too every time they move up a crane out for an easy job, routine setup. And then we'll do one because we got lots of mountains around here and hill setups. So we'll go with them to make sure that they can do a hill setup. So yeah, we don't throw guys into the tree industry very quickly. So yeah, on my job posting as well, I have the growth opportunities of what the different stages are in our business. And they kind of see, hey, I'm here, so I actually have room to grow. So we mentioned that. We mentioned that we have systems, right? That we have all the training support. We want to make this the easiest transition and support you to get your confidence up so that you're not going to site and leaving stranded. So that's how kind of guys see that and like, hey, these guys actually value me and want a better career for me. And then also they want me to, do well. And as a result, our customers do well and we do well as owners. So standards and cultures, I'll put my principles in there, kind of what we are all about, so that when they come to site or come to our interview, they know what we're all about. And it actually keeps us accountable that we're not just saying we're them. They basically are like, well, I thought you guys, have this principle, so why are you acting a different way, right? So, and then just kind of clarifying what role they're coming in from day one. It's like, hey, you're starting on this crane, but this is your growth path. This is what industries you're going to be in. We're going to support you in that, but then we're going to try get you up. And it's basically on performance. So we don't do seniority, any of that stuff. It's the best operator gets on the best cranes, on the best jobs. So we do like custom homes, a lot of fancy stuff, tree removals. We need class acts. We don't need, dirty, your mom jokes kind of thing to these millionaire guys that we're working for, which is, whatever in construction. But when you get to some pretty high class stuff, we need professional guys. So, and then basically every time I need to hire somebody, I try to hire ahead of schedule, that I'm not desperate. A lot of mistakes happen when you just hire, you're desperate, and you hire the first 5 guys that show up in one of those. But it might take your 15th guy to get a good quality guy. So when my dad and I say, hey, we should probably pick up another guy here, first thing I do is phone around to all my partners in the crane industry and say, hey, have you guys passed up any good operators lately that you're not hiring, but they sounded pretty good? So I'll get quite a few operators that way. Another one is social media. I post right away. We're hiring. Like you guys see my stuff. So it's like I'm talking about how we run our company, all this kind of stuff. All that attracts visibility. The way I look at it is somebody needs a job. I need an operator. I need to find, these are all the bridges to connect me from basically my need to their need as well, right? So partnering with the crane school, that's helped us out a bunch over the years. We obviously have our own that we're partnered with. A lot of people kind of get discouraged and like, oh, well, we don't have one. So, and the other guys, basically just give them to the union or have some big partnerships, their family. But the best way to get into crane school is actually to drop by repeatedly and be like, hey, is there a guy training? And I meet him. And on a Friday or whatever, or just after work, go in and be visible. But then it also works out that we can send these guys and get them work right away. So if you can supply them work plus have a good working environment, that goes a long way, and we'll actually refer you. So don't, just because you don't know any, crane schools today, you can change that on Monday by just showing up and creating a relationship. Trade shows, if you're in a small town, trade shows, high schools, the way I look at it is if you want to solve your crane operator problem and predict the future, you got to create it. So I do a lot of, some of my operators came from like they're farm kids, and I know them through their parents. And it's like, hey, they're looking for a career. So I pull them into the crane industry. It's like, hey, would love it. Same with the trade shows. You see at trade shows is dads walking around with their teenage sons and be like, hey, does this interest you? Does this interest you? But who's never there? Cranes. We're all just busy, running our business. So trade shows are a big one, just setting up a booth on a Saturday and seeing a kid, even when you bring your cranes to high schools, you watch this high school kid jump into a crane seat and his eyes light up, and you just know, hey, this is what I want to do, right? And that's pretty cool that you get to facilitate that. So that's another big way I do. Keeping an active list. So all the people that have already applied to your company on that app 10 Fleet there, basically, if you have it on your website, you can have this link of basically, or your Google business profile, that you can, do a job application. We're hiring all year round. So you'll get all these applications, and then you can just now go phone, down the list of people that already applied at your business. And that's another big way I get guys. But recruiting's a big one. I'm always trying to recruit guys and getting the best kind of hires there. So basically, I'm going to end it with, we'll do some question times if you guys want, but the cold hard truth about it is you attract who you are. So if you don't like the people that you've been attracting, that is a reflection of you, and you need to change something to attract better guys. Basically what I have here is, if you want a better people, build a better company to join. And when you do that, you'll find the reputation gets around, operators all talk, and they will come to you looking for work, and you'll have no shortage of opportunities. Like I said this week in one of my posts, I've had 3 guys come just this week alone. Last week was another one, right? So it's just a routine thing that people want to come work for us because we're very vocal on how we run our company. But and then another one, closing takeaway, is like, in the crane service, people are the service. So we value cranes and we see the money in cranes, but we need that rock star operator to run that crane, and we have so much more momentum than having 3 mediocre, guys, right? That's can bug our customers and not do a great job. So do you guys have any questions?